We love the C70 so much that we added a second one to our arsenal very, very late into 2023, over 3 years after its release. That's quite late into a camera's life cycle to buy a camera new that isn't made in Germany. Now, we did get it on special, but ultimately I think that purchase certainly gives you some idea of how pleased we've been with the Canon C70 as a workhorse camera for us as a company, primarily producing commercial and corporate content. Now, as we inch ever closer to a C70 successor, I'm here to share my thoughts on what I'd love to see in a C70 Mark II or whatever the spiritual C70 successor is going to be. So really quick, let me talk through features of this camera that I love and don't want to go anywhere. So the built-in NDs, up to 10 stops. Is Sony's Vari ND better? Yes, but these are still great. Dual mini XLR inputs, would I love full size? Sure, but I get the trade-off for a camera of this size. 120 FPS with no resolution crop. The RF mount, I would have considered a C300 Mark III, but the EF mount makes it a solid no from us, as we have a suite of RF lenses and they're awesome. The backup audio tracks, they're great. I've never had to switch to them in post, but just knowing they're there makes me less stressed about sound on set. And of course, the image. Yes, it does lean a bit magenta, but you can correct for it. And really, the color science is very nice, and the shadows are very clean when engaging that dual gain at 60 FPS and below. Now, although I shoot a shed load of B-roll at 100, mostly outdoors, and like that looks really nice too. But what annoys me about this camera? Okay, let me talk about that, and then I'll talk about what I'm hoping for, and some of that is gonna be like sort of pie in the sky stuff. But yeah, let me, I'll get to what I'd ideally like to see. I'll then get to what I'd ideally like to see in the Mark II. Okay, number one, there's no other way to say it. The screen on the C70 is crap. It's crap. It's flimsy and it starts to feel kind of loose quite quickly after use. And the contrast, the brightness and resolution of it are pretty rubbish. In bright sun, like it's unusable. You need a separate monitor or an EVF. I normally am rocking a Zacuto EVF on there. Shane prefers a monitor and he's got a Ninja 5 on there most of the time. I will say it is responsive to touch controls. It functions really well in that regard. It's never missed a beat there. And indoors for light B-roll shoots, you can use it, no problem. Okay, number two, HDMI. Yes, it is full-size HDMI, but it's still HDMI. And coming from Reds and then an Ursa G2 and having an Alexa, I'm often shooting in pretty extreme, like Australian weather conditions. Like I've been in like touching 50 degrees Celsius, which is absolutely it's a tribute to the camera that it's handled that heat no problem. But HDMI is quite simply a consumer grade connection. And for professional work, it's far safer to have a lockable one. I use a cage to hold it in place and protect it, but yeah, let's graduate to SDI, please. I understand almost no one would buy a C300 Mark III if the C70 had SDI. I've heard that said, and it's true, but I'm hoping a reset of new cameras will give Canon an opportunity to reset the tier differentiators and bring SDI to the new C70. Okay, long GOP compression. For higher frame rates, 100 to 120p for me, I need to use long GOP compression. Everyone does on the C70 in those frame rates. Now, that compression can be very handy when you're shooting hours of interviews or lots of B-roll to keep file sizes down. And for more static shots, it does work a treat, but you do see artifacts more in high detail shots and shots with a lot of movement. For a lot of corporate work, like these aren't really issues a lot of clients will notice, but we don't shoot proxies, mainly because the C70 can't record proxies at those higher frame rates. We edit with our originals, and the long GOP files are far more taxing on our editing machines. For light, simple edits, like they are fine, but you really feel it on larger projects. So what is my February wish list for changes, upgrades, and features? Well, for the segue of the year, it's high frame rate all-eye encoding. Slow motion B-roll is overused and I'm one of the worst offenders. But I don't want to have to switch to long GOP compression to shoot 100 or 120p. And at the very least, if it has to be long GOP, let me switch to 24 or 25p and have it automatically switch back to all eye. Maybe like a highest quality setting for the frame rate. I think Reds used to have something like that. That'd be rad. One thing I've learned over the years is that editing programs and computers really like it when you stick to one type of file compression. It just makes everything run smoother, and LongOp requires a lot of computer processing. If Canon can't or won't do that, I hope they at least give us proxy recording at those high frame rates. The current C70 does it at up to 60p, I think. Again, I know this is a key differentiator between the C70 and the C300 Mark III. The C300 can do 120 in RAW or all eye. I don't need RAW, but all eye, it's time. Okay, we need SDI, I've covered that. A better screen, we've covered that. It doesn't have to be amazing, we're attaching monitors and EVFs, but not everyone is. Can we get a screen that isn't so flimsy and with better brightness and contrast? That'd be great. I'd always love more dynamic range and to see improvements mainly in the highlights. Not much more to say about that. The current C70's no slouch there. My second biggest wish is for a faster sensor read speed. I believe we're somewhere around 16 milliseconds on the C70. I think our Ursa was around 8, which is great, and I can see the difference in handheld footage. The C70 is around 8 in 100p, because it disengages that dual gain output, but I'd really like to see a faster read speed and the quality of the DGO sensor maintained at higher frame rates. Yeah, no worries, dickhead, I can hear the engineers saying to that. Lastly, and this is my biggest wish, and it's a strange one considering I've made the point that you don't need a full frame cinema camera. Video link below.
Like and subscribe, fam!
I think the C70 could benefit from becoming a 6K full frame camera that is also a 4K Super 35 camera. That or Canon make an amazing L series 18-55 lens like Fuji that's a 24-70 equivalent for APS-C cameras. We have short narrative work on the C70, but it's predominantly shooting corporate doco style content. Sometimes shooting B-roll sequences very, very quickly. In the corporate world, I'm often, throwing backgrounds way out of focus, like as much as I can, because they're uncontrolled, they're often messy, or the colors are crap. It's not a film with talented crew carefully crafting the environment, which we in turn want to showcase at T4 or 5.6 and where it's an important aspect of the mise-en-scene and the storytelling. In the past, I'd used the full frame adapter with the 24-70 on the C70, but after experiencing softness, loss of contrast, and purple blob stuff, not in all shooting scenarios, but enough, I've veered away from using it. Also, we have all these amazing RF lenses, and I can't use them with the full frame adapter. Canon, where the fridge is the 35mm RF prime. It better vacuum my freaking carpet when it comes out. So on full frame, a 24-70, even 28-70, or better yet, 24-105, well done Canon, that'll do. It gives you a fantastic field of view range with enough of a shallow depth of field for corporate doco work. I like shooting on primes, I love it the most, but when time is of the essence, if you can make do with one lens, it can really mean the difference between having more than enough coverage and just scraping by. I think these changes would result certainly in a more expensive camera, for sure, and I'd understand that. Like maybe there could be a C69 that fits in a lower price bracket, but I'd love to see these features in a C70 Mark II that's maybe 2 to 3K more expensive, but not in the C300 Mark III release price territory. The way cameras depreciate, if I'm not buying an Arri, and with what the C70 and its competitors already deliver, I just don't think it's worth spending over 10K US on a digital video camera. What do you think? What do you want? What are you shooting on at the moment and why? See you in the comments.